One super important thing to know about psychology is that you are still reacting from the person you were during the most painful parts of your life. So you might have heard of something called parts work or internal family systems, which basically states that we have parts to ourselves, almost like a split personality type of deal, but not really. And some of these parts are what we call protector parts. And essentially they're there to protect you. But oftentimes, protector parts aren't really protecting you for like long-term benefit. They're essentially trying to get you out of danger in the short term, and then therefore can have maybe some adverse long-term effects. And so one of the ways that you can really find out what your parts are is to think about some of the most painful times in your life when you really, really struggled. And imagine what age were you at those times. So maybe you were 14, maybe you were 6, maybe you were 25, something like that. And like write those ages down and maybe describe a little bit what you were like during those ages and what happened. And what will happen is that when you are triggered, when something kind of reminds you of that painful incident, like maybe it's like some type of rejection, maybe it's a job insecurity, something like that, you will react in a very similar way that you were at that time and at that age. And so that's why oftentimes we can see individuals really regress like super rapidly to a state of mind that is much, much younger, much more immature, and perhaps not taking the best decisions that it could be, even though the individual has gone through so much growth and typically makes excellent decisions. So if this happens to you, this is completely normal. And one thing that can be really helpful is to write down those parts, to have it in your mind, even maybe to name them, to realize that, like, you know, when I see like a sign of rejection, I'm going to react like, you know, like my 14-year-old self. I'm going to regress straight to that. I'm going to think like her, and I'm going to engage in the same coping mechanisms maybe that I did at that age. And that's completely normal. It's the way that the brain functions. And it's just really critical to be aware of this, because sometimes we have the sensation that something difficult happens, or maybe we're under a lot of stress, and we engage in a behavior that feels like confounding to us. We're like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Like, why would I do something that I know is not good for me, that harms me, maybe harms people around me? Why would I do that? And this is why. It's because when you're triggered, you regress to a younger part, and you engage in a coping mechanism that maybe isn't that helpful to you.